whoever you are and whenever you are, welcome, good souls of the planet and beyond, to Paranormal Now. I'm your host, Alan B. Smith. Join us as we traverse the cosmic highway of paranormal portals and tantalizing turnoffs. As the Pine Bush, New York UFO Fair is this weekend, tonight's guests are both from New York and will be attending the event. First hour guest is Gayle Beatty to talk Bigfoot and cryptids, and our second hour guest is Sheryl Costa to break down what she's learned from hard-earned statistical analysis of UFO reports, 146,800 of them. If you've not already heard the news, it's with a heavy heart for me to share with you that nuclear physicist and scientific ufologist Stanton Friedman passed away last night, Monday, May 13th, 2019. For those who are listening and those who are fans, I know his family has asked that attempted contact be refrained for the time being, and their privacy be respected during this time. If you would like to express your condolences, I would just stand by and wait until there's a public release from the family to direct you how to do that. Obviously online, people are posting and tweeting and sharing about this as it's hit many of us really, I have to say for myself, a lot harder than I thought. There are only a few people that I didn't know growing up that really had an impact on my life, and Stanton Friedman was definitely one of them. He was an iconic hero for me, and I had a little downtime before the show started, and I went onto YouTube and I was just watching videos of Stan, and it's a sad day for ufology. For those of you who may not have gotten the sense, Stanton was really a kind person and compassionate person. He was more than just a determined, dogged, ufological researcher and nuclear physicist. I mean, he was a full human being, and there weren't many like him, and there still aren't many like him at all. So I have a clip that I took from an earlier show that I'd like to share with you just in honor with Stan. And then after that, I asked Race Hobbs of KGRA to share a few words about his experience with Stanton. As far as advanced technology, because last time we spoke, Stan, you spoke quite a bit about interstellar travel and the feasibility built into physics for that. And, in this article, it talks about the Aurora, the B-2, the SR-71. Since then, have we heard of any other more advanced aircraft that really fascinates you that may have actually
Not
been?
really.
No?
No, I don't think so. I'm not saying there aren't any out there in secret.
Mm-hmm. But to your knowledge?
But to my knowledge, there are no super-duper, hyper-special, high-performance aircraft out there. And if there are, we're not talking about them. Whether that's to fool the Russians and the Chinese and others, I don't know who are working on their super-duper aircraft. I don't know. Yeah. But we have recognized that we're not the big shots in the neighborhood, which is probably a good thing. Although, it's interesting. Within the last 2 months, almost 2 months ago, there was a special issue of Scientific American devoted to life in the universe, and just within the past 2 weeks, Newsweek magazine had a special edition, 100 pages long, loaded with pictures, and it's called Life Beyond Earth, ? The mission to find the answer. Small print says, exploring the universe with researchers, astronomers, eyewitnesses, and more. I don't know, what more do you want? So that's 2 major magazines, and they both do mention UFOs, and not in a nasty, stupid sort of way. They don't talk about those UFO nuts or anything like that. So we're making progress. And both of us wish that they had mentioned our books, but they've mentioned quite a few books and quite a few researchers. So we'll have to catch the next special around, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I think you bring up an interesting point, too. Oh, no, go ahead, Stan.
No, just that, the times have changed when two major publications can take a decent attitude toward UFOs and life. Most of the SETI community, the silly effort to investigate community, that I talk about, they ignore UFOs. They don't want to talk about them. Obviously, people say, why? If aliens are visiting here, then who needs to listen with a radio telescope? Right. Maybe you need sign language, for next time you happen to meet an alien. I don't know. So there have been changes, and we're getting there.
All right, so that's just a short excerpt of the several conversations that I've had with Stanton on and off the air, and unfortunately, I've never had a chance to meet him. So I know someone here who has, and that's Race Hobbs. Race, can you share us a little bit of your experience with Stanton?
I met Stanton Friedman many years ago, and although I didn't get to break bread with Stanton until about 7 years ago, Stanton has always been, and he always will be, the father of ufology, as far as I'm concerned. Especially in this day and age of social media, this subject is mired in, people arguing and backbiting and backstabbing and, just cutting each other left and right and drama and he said, she said, and all this. Never was Stanton Friedman any more or any less professional than to be involved in something like that. A matter of fact, in my last interview with him in Big Bear Lake, California, this past January, Stanton, I asked him, I said, is there some advice that you could give, the next generation of UFO researchers and investigators coming up? And he said, well, the first thing is I would tell them to stay off social media. And the second thing he said, and he said this many, many, many times, was do your research by investigation and not proclamation. And that needs to be written in stone somewhere. He coined that many, many years ago. And he said it at so many conferences I've seen him. We were just talking off the air. He had never been at the Ozark UFO conference. This conference has taken place in Eureka Springs, Arkansas for like 33 years, 32 years in Eureka Springs. And the very, very first one was in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Stanton was there for that one. But when they moved the conference to Eureka Springs and Lou Fair took it over, he was never invited back. Even politics back then, without social media, were in play. And when I found out that Stanton Friedman had never been invited to the conference, once I started booking for him, I got him there. And Mark D'Antonio, whom I'm sure can add to it, he was just talking about, he got to ride back to the hotel, which is a good 45-minute drive. Just him and Stanton by themselves conversing and chopping it up back and forth. So many people have so many stories, Alan, about him that way because Stanton was one that was very accessible. You could walk right up to Stanton in an airport, in a library, anywhere, and start talking about UFOs, and he would talk back.
Well, you know what? He cared more about what he was sharing with everyone. He cared more about the work that was done and getting the truth out there. It wasn't about celebrityism.
Oh no.
And he was the first.
Yeah.
And yet he did not carry him that way at all.
Grant Cameron even made a post today, Alan, about that. He said many, 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 many years ago, they were at a conference together. I think they were like standing on a street corner to cross the street to get to the event, the venue. And some people had driven by and said, Stanton Friedman, honked and waved. And Grant had said something to Stanton to the effect of, gee, Stanton, you're famous. And Stanton didn't even answer him. He never looked at himself, Alan, as any kind of a celebrity or anything like that. And I just give the man all the credit for representing all the rest of us, those at the time and those on their way up, and those that are working now and soon to be on their way in it, with the utmost professionalism and class.
Right.
In over 50 years of doing this, since the late 60s, he was very, 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 very into the truth and to the facts, and not the garbage and the hearsay and the suspicions and the theories and and all that. He dug in and he went for those. There's something to be said for document researchers. When you sit in archives for days and days and days, and you're looking over documents that have nothing to do with you, you're just trying to find that little crumb, that little tidbit. He was that guy willing to do that work.
Yep, and that little tidbit could open doors for all sorts of investigators.
Goodness gracious, it's just unreal what he's done. And we'll be talking about it for a long time.
Oh, for sure. And I hope you're right. That the legacy of Stanton is that we remember civility and remember professionalism in the world of ufology. There was someone not too long ago that had made this comment on a social media site saying that they had crushed Stanton in a debate, and I just thought it was just so callous, and they misspelled his name.
Yeah.
And I just thought that's all about you propping yourself up, and I just don't understand.
That was so.
Why we have to behave like that.
Yeah, that social media spin I don't get with. There was some debate with him and Jeremy Corbell about Bob Lazar, and there's a big part of me that believes Bob Lazar. But what Stanton Friedman talked about, I also believe as well. You have to, when you're someone who stands on the facts and stands on empirical evidence, then you have to take Stanton Friedman's side. If you're somebody willing to believe that things can happen, you're going to be afforded the Bob Lazar story as reality. And so I just want to make one quick deal because we've got to move on. I know we've got Bill Skywatcher, we've got Mark D'Antonio and others coming, and then the guest tonight. But I just wanted to, and I'm going to let this go first here on your show. In that interview that I did with him, my last interview with Stanton, I inquired as to what was going to happen with his archives, with all of his legacy that he had to leave behind. And he was very, curious as to why I thought about asking that question. He inquired about it after the interview. But I want to let all the folks know that that interview will be released here in the next week or so. We've got some editing work that we need to do on it and a few other things, but we're almost ready to let that interview go. And it's just about 15 minutes, 20 minutes long. It's not a great big long interview. But in that interview, he did tell me that the University of New Brunswick, up there in New Brunswick, Canada, they do have possession of his archives. At the time I asked him in January, they had already taken some 300 boxes of his archives and documents and his research. And he was working with them at the time to collate everything and organize everything. And there, when it's all set and ready to go, we'll all be able to make the trip to New Brunswick and to go into the university's archives. And we can check out all of Stanton Friedman's research and work there for our own future research in the future. And I was really happy. And so was he. You'll see his face light up. He's quite happy that they were interested in taking his work and putting it all together for future researchers to be able to access and utilize in the future. Yeah,
that's just the treasure trove for everyone moving forward. Thank
Amazing.
You so much, Grace. I appreciate that.
You're welcome, Alan.
All right. So joining us now for a few minutes is KGRA producer Bill Skywatcher to share about the upcoming Pine Bush UFO Fair that we are excitedly attending this weekend, May 18th. Hey, Bill.
Good evening. And I just want to also say my condolence to all those that knew Stanton, his family. God bless them. It's been a shocking day because today I was downtown doing a tour with some of those that are here visiting for the Pine Bush UFO Fair. And Tom Reed, I got the message about Stanton. And although many of us knew he was dealing with health issues, like you said, Alan, it was a shock.
Right, yeah.
And I had to take a moment to step to the side and absorb it. It was kind of, I can't even explain it because I was getting emotional. I was getting emotional right now listening to both of you because I know when Race did that with Stan, he called me and he told me about it. And Race, like he said, Race was like in tears.
Yeah.
And I'm affected. I think many of the listeners who knew Stanton, now I never met him personally, but I'm aware of his work. But his legacy lives on, and all these archives and some material that may not have been released in the public is going to be out there for those to analyze for decades, eternity. So at least we have that, and he's a pioneer. And right. Like I said, it's a little emotional to discuss it because it was a shock.
Yes. And that's an altruistic thing that he did at the end of his life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
so Pine Bush.
Yes, Pine Bush, which you're going to be there.
I am. I'm stoked. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, well, you're going to be part of the KGRA digital broadcasting station table. So we're looking forward to having you there. And for the folks that are listening, it's going to be in Pine Bush, New York, which is this Saturday, May 18th. It begins at 10 a.m. till 4. There is a day event with vendors and daytime speakers, but primarily in the evening, we're going to have Travis Walton, of course, KGRA's own Mark D'Antonio and his co-host, Amanda Curran of Sky Tour Radio, which airs on Sundays and at 8. Let me make that correction. I should know that as their producer. 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's a 2-hour show. And we have Tom Reed, Travis Walton, as I mentioned, Mark D'Antonio, Sheryl Costa, your guest, which you'll have in the second hour, and Peter Robbins. So it's going to be a really great evening with the speakers. It's $10 at the door. We'll be representing KGRA as well during the fair. And hopefully people will come out and meet us and greet us and enjoy the fair. But here right now, right sitting beside me is Mark D'Antonio and his co-host Amanda Curran. So I'm going to pass the baton over to them.
Yes, welcome guys. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, Alan? I'm glad to be here.
Hi, Alan. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. We've messaged each other.
Yes.
But yeah, it's nice to hear your voice. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited about the weekend. So what are you guys going to do?
This is my first time being at Pine Bush too.
Oh, yeah, it's nice to see there was a real person here. I've never met him, and this was my first time actually meeting the co-host of Sky Tour Radio. Yeah, and here she is. She showed up.
And you guys still get along?
No, we hate each other, but we pretend.
It's only been 2 days. Give us time.
We're kidding for you. It's gonna be fantastic here.
Yeah.
And the evening talks are what we pay attention to because the festival is fantastic during the day, but the evening talks are going to be fun too. And I have a talk plan, and as Bill said, Tom Reed's going to be here. Kit Torvaldsen's here as well, and she's going to be talking about her book, A Hybrid Story, and she's going to wow the crowd with some of the weird and strange experiences and things that happened to her. And she may even do a live demonstration of some of these things too, because she has some very strange physical effects that have occurred to her. So that'll be interesting to see that. I'm an astronomer, so I'm going to do something that talks about extraterrestrial life and how we're finding it and what we seem to know as of now. It's changed. It changes monthly, and it only gets better.
Yeah. I can't believe that I've never been to Pine Bush, living here in New York City. So I'm almost ashamed that I've not really, but I'm just totally stoked that I've woken up to this fantastic folk event. It's a small town.
It's in your backyard, man.
What's that?
It's in your backyard, man.
Really?
It really is, though. It really is. And that's what I'm excited to talk about with our two guests, the whole Hudson Valley paranormal phenomenon, because this is a strange place, right up the Hudson, all the way down throughout Long Island.
Yeah, and you know what? When people come here, they don't just have to come to, go down and look at the events on the main street, where there's going to be all kinds of tables and booths and so forth. But they have a UFO museum here too, and this UFO museum is fantastic. It covers all of the major sightings that have happened in this area, along with the Hudson Valley sightings. Linda Zimmerman has contributed a great deal to the museum. I've actually done work as of this time. I've done some actual visual effect model work for them to help increase the appeal of the museum to folks. So it's all different from last year. So it's really kind of cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to go to our first break here pretty soon. Was Tom Reed there with you?
Yes. Let's bring Tom Reed on. Tom, jump on the mic on.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good night, and I'll see you soon.
All right. We'll see you. See you Saturday.
Good night, Alan.
All right. Good night, Amanda.
All right. Stand by. Tom is coming
Stand by. Tom. All right. Well, Tom was on last week, so if you call last week's episode,
it's better having short wires and a lot of legs.
Yep. Oh, Tom, you there? This is what we do. This is what happens when you go live like this. But it's very exciting. So Tom Reed is of the the famous Reed family UFO event in Sheffield, Massachusetts. And that's one of the most important UFO events to date because it is now officiated as historically true, according to the United States government, which is a big deal because it's the first and only UFO case done so. So, Tom, do we have you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, how are you? So what are you doing at the festival, Tom?
Oh, my God. Well, you've pretty much laid it out. What we have here is our case, if you will, really, I'm going to say maybe an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half distance from Pine Bush. So this year we got something lined up for Pine Bush that we've never done before, like bringing Kevin Titus, the judge who actually sealed the government documents, is going to actually be speaking by my side at Pine Bush. And I'm going to have we're going to get into not only what happened, but how it happened and why this area is so active and how, the Sheffield case actually took place over a body of water, the Housatonic River. Yeah. And, of course, Pine Bush, a lot of the sightings in this area were over the Hudson. So there's a lot of mirroring, if you will, between what happened with us in the 60s and, of course, what happened over here in Pine Bush in the 80s. And so with that said, we've got some rare footage. We've, with the help of Bill from KGRA, we were able to film some of the witnesses that have never gone public before. And we're going to try to, if time allows, be able to show some of that to the audience along with Kevin Titus. We're going to show the documents and actually get into how and why this got inducted into state. And being so close to Pine Bush, I think there's a connection between what we saw and what happened in Pine Bush.
All right, great. Well, thanks so much. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to add something quick. KGRA has also sponsored a solar lamppost at the park.
Yes, very important. Right.
Yes, so we are now sponsors, thanks to Tom Reed, and of course, KGRA thanks Tom Reed for being a part of the Tom Reed UFO Monument Park. So, yes, we are now officially sponsors of the park itself.
Yeah, it's very exciting. There are so many collaborations in regard to the park itself. With yourself, Ancient Aliens, what other organizations participated?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, this year it's exploded. I mean, this year has been absolutely overwhelming in some respects. We've had over $8,600 worth of donations in the last 60 days. And of course, we've got some of your listeners may actually be familiar with the movie Bats with Lou Diamond Phillips and the movie The Werewolf, the Beast Within Us. Well, that was actually produced by a man by the name of Louis Morneau, a Hollywood movie director who lives right next to Oliver Stone. Well, his brother, Len Morneau, came down to the park and was actually working alongside, Bill from KGR Radio and myself to install this sign that the Ancient Aliens plaque was affixed to. So Ancient Aliens didn't actually pay for the whole sign. They paid for the piece in the middle. And, of course, the movie director's brother came up from Connecticut and actually installed that entire sign, if you will, and had that piece put into the sign. So you've got Ancient Aliens, you've a movie director's brother also on the back of that sign. Got Shockwave Motors, the electric manufacturer. They're actually coming to the park on Sunday following their visit to Pine Bush as well. And got stone being delivered, willow trees by locals, and you've got
it looks beautiful. Yeah,
Travis Walton, who's a sponsor of our park, and Ben Hansen from TV's Factor Faked, the Roswell UFO Museum. I mean, it's just been overwhelming. WSBS Radio, who actually broadcast the incident back in 1969, who's also in the Roswell Museum, is also sponsoring the bench. And so it's growing a lot, and now we've got you guys in there. And it's overwhelming. And here's the thing about the park. The park is not something that generates money for anybody. The park actually is simply built by those who sponsor or want to be part of that park for all the right reasons. It's a very heartfelt park. And it's growing because it's not a selfish type of self-serving thing. It's a public that was developed and built out of the goodness of the locals. I mean, that monument that actually has made the papers over and over again was never meant to be a monument. That was actually a marker that was paid for and fabricated by locals. Yeah. And this is the kind of thing we're going to share with Pine Bush, what really happened with that park, what really happened in Sheffield. And we're going to actually try to bring some of those people to Pine Bush to speak for the very first time.
Well, I'm really excited. Thank you so much, Tom, Bill, Mark, and Amanda. I appreciate it. I will see you all this weekend. And for everybody listening, if you are in the New York or tri-state area, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Hampshire, I don't know, Ohio, maybe just drive in for the weekend and have a fun day trip. It's going to be a blast for everybody involved. I can't wait. I will see you on the other side of this first break. And coming up will be Gayle Beatty, and we'll be talking about her experiences chasing cryptids and Bigfoot in the woods. And I also posted on Instagram a picture of her where I'm more suspicious that she's actually hunting moss and not Bigfoot. But I'll ask her that question when we get back right after this break. Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now on KGRA Radio. We'll be right back.
Is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Nancy Vernon here with Ozark Mountain Publishing, coming to you from the Ozark Mountains of Northwest Arkansas. We are a publisher of New Age, metaphysical, spiritual, nonfiction books, as well as digital downloads, DVDs, and audiobooks. This is also the home of all of Dolores Cannon's titles. The company was founded in 1992 and has been bringing to you a varied selection of titles covering many different subjects. This year, we have added a new imprint to our company, Big Sandy Press, that will be publishing titles from the genres of historical fiction and nonfiction, paranormal fiction, and more. So be sure to visit our website, ozarkmt.com, and explore all the new and exciting authors and titles coming your way.
For more information about Ozark Mountain Publishing or their events, call 800-935-0045. That's 800-935-0045. Or visit their website at ozarkmt.com. That's ozarkmt.com.
Join me, George Norrie, in Indian Wells, California, for the 7th Annual Contact in the Desert UFO Conference, May 31st to June 3rd. Contact in the Desert is an epic weekend of adventure filled with exciting explorations into ancient aliens, human origins, crop circles, UFO sightings, disclosure, and the newest evidence of ongoing contact. This amazing weekend offers over 50 lectures, 40 workshops, 8 exciting panels, special events, and a luncheon that I'm hosting. scene. Contact in the Desert also features leading experts including Giorgio Tsoukalos, David Wilcock, Linda Moulton Howe, Michael Tellinger, Eric von Daniken, Doc Wallach, and many more important researchers and scientists in the field. Contact in the Desert is your place for inside information. Join us at the contactinthedesert.com to get your tickets today. It's time to make contact. That's contactinthedesert.com. Don't miss it. Contactinthedesert.com.
Hey, KGRA family, are you looking to show the world that you're a true believer? Well, shop now at thesaucerbrand.com. They've got something for the whole family. Jackets, hoodies, shirts, and hats, and so much more. And now's your last chance to use promo code KGRA for $10 off when you spend $50 or more at thesaucerbrand.com. Your new source for official and authentic ufology-inspired essentials made right here in the USA. And don't forget, use promo code KGRA at checkout and get $10 off when you spend $50 or more. Believe in style and elevate your craft at thesaucerbrand.com. And for those of you going to Contact in the Desert and Alien Con this year, Saucer will land at CITD May 31st through June the 3rd, and look for them at The Alien Con June 21st through the 23rd.
Your official contact for the best alternative talk on the planet. KGRARadio.com.
Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith on KGRA Radio. My guest is Gayle Beatty. She is the mother of 4 and grew up on the base of Stising Mountain in the town of Pine Plains, New York. One night, Gayle decided to go solo camping up behind her house. She was always a nature lover, as well as a fisherman and hunter, and had spent countless hours on the mountain. She set up her tent just before dark and settled in for the night when she heard the sound of a large owl coming from a tree above. A few minutes later, Gayle heard the most god-awful scream. It was so loud that it vibrated her chest. She had never heard of Bigfoot and had no idea what kind of creature could make that sound. She managed to get up enough nerve to bolt out of her tent and down a steep ravine and get to the safety of her home. Years later, Gayle was watching the show Finding Bigfoot on TV and heard the same frightening sound. She knew then what she had encountered. In January of 2011, Gayle started investigating the Bigfoot Phenomenon. Gayle, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Alan. I'm really looking forward to talking with you guys about this phenomenon.
I'm really excited, but I have to ask you first. One of the photos you had sent me, you were holding what looked like a big pile of moss.
Yes.
So are you really looking for Bigfoot, or is it just an excuse to go out and sort of collect, odd things? Gathering moss.
Actually, I was gathering the moss because we were investigating a local farm that had Bigfoot sighting about 10 years prior. It had showed itself in the window of their dining room. And their niece was visiting from the city, and she got up to get a drink of water and passed by the window and saw this creature looking in, a big black one. So that was one of the first places that I started investigating. And, it just gave us so much footprints and hair on the barbed wire fence. Their cows wouldn't go into this one area where the Bigfoot had been. And so I was gathering the moss because we put out some trail cameras, and we baited the area with a deer carcass, a fresh roadkill that we had found. And so that's what the moss was for, to kind of camouflage our trail cameras.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Well, if you,
what I was doing.
well, actually, the pants, the camouflage pants you were wearing were very effective. If anybody wants to just check out the image we're talking about, I posted it on Instagram. Just go at Paranormal Now on Instagram, and you can see the image there. But that's part of the fun, right? Of going out and looking for Bigfoot or cryptids. It's part of the journey itself. The exploration itself is thrilling.
Yes, and it's such a mystery. I mean, the more we find out about these creatures, we're trying to find out their gestation period, what time of year do they breed, because we're finding a lot of adult tracks with juvenile tracks of 5 to 9 inches. And we know there's a breeding population here in the Hudson Valley, but there's just so much that we don't know. But as, more and more people become aware of this, and that they don't have to go to the Pacific Northwest, they can go to a nature preserve and look around for tree breaks and footprints and structures they make and little coveys and ambush spots. It's not hard to find them, but they leave subtle signs in the forest, and most people just walk right by and don't even know what it is, like X structures. We believe that means keep out. And then they take trees, saplings, and bow them over and then weight them down with either rocks or logs. And that's a sign possibly for other Bigfoot to let them know, go in this direction, or, there's water in this direction. There's just so much we have to learn, but more and more people are sharing their encounters and information, and it's kind of like a huge community, a Bigfoot community, and we're trying to get to the bottom of this mystery.
At the Pine Bush UFO Fair this weekend, what would you be talking about mostly?
Probably, well, we have these boards with photographs that we've taken over the years and blown up, and I usually bring them and explain, like I'll just look at a board and say, oh, that's the day that we went to Livingston, New York, to a camp to do a presentation, and Debbie Ray was filming me giving this lecture, and there were 54 children and, I don't know, quite a few, camp or adults, chaperones or whatever you want to call them, and there was a huge, we don't know if it was a Bigfoot or a dog man. It's got kind of a pointy snout, and the ears are a little pointy, and it was watching us in the window. So we've had so many experiences and encounters that, it's hard to tell all of them. So I might pick 5 or 6 different stories and then show them the pictures that go along with what happened. And it's just a fascinating subject. It's changed my life for the better.
It's really interesting that you just said that, because I do feel that the paranormal, generally speaking, does make my life for the better. Yeah. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if that's something that's just part of the human archetype of our minds. And, before this, there was mythology, and that's what we had to tap into this ethereal place within ourselves. And that's why I think losing Stanton Friedman would hit me so hard unexpectedly, because all of this means so much to me, and I wonder, why does it mean so much to you?
I don't know, because I was not the kind of kid, like growing up, to even, like, I'd be afraid of everything. Ghosts or, I couldn't watch any scary shows on TV or anything. And it's almost like a spiritual journey. if that sounds right. I mean, it's definitely, it's just got me so that I want to learn more. And I don't believe that all of the Sasquatch are bad. Just like people, we're not all good and we're not all bad. I think that there's some that are helpful, beneficial, and are watchers of the earth and see what we're doing with the pollution and the violence. Yeah. And I just think that they're here for a reason, and I don't think it's bad. I mean, I hope it isn't anyway. I don't think that they're here to harm us. I just think that they're probably looking at us in disgust, and saying, when are you people going to wake up? They leave such a small imprint, like wherever they go, they don't leave garbage and, piles of, crap that they, might have gathered or like people do. They're just very respectful of the earth. And I think they need to be respected and not hunted down, to bring a specimen to the table.
Yeah, what's interesting, I just saw an article today about the Mariana Trench, and 6 miles down, they found another plastic bag in this deep dive. And even places we haven't even been to yet, we're trashing. And then here you have these seemingly intelligent species living in the shadows and leaving virtually no trace behind. And I just want to thank my father for sharing that link with me. Because the timing was perfect here. But do you think that we are being judged by these creatures?
Possibly, because some of the Native American tribes call them their elder brothers, and some tribes actually traded with the Bigfoot very, long time ago, and they felt that they were the watchers, and they didn't talk badly about them. Other tribes said they're cannibals and would steal their women and children, but I'm thinking more on the terms now that there are different types of Sasquatch. We know that. I mean, not only in looks, but in demeanor, and some can be aggressive. But I think the majority of the ones anyway in New York, because, that's where I've been mostly doing my research, but they haven't harmed us. And believe me, I've been around them hundreds of times, done expeditions, had, some little scary things happen, and a couple of times at night, pretty scary things have happened, but that's because we were out there filming them, and they did not like it, and they started breaking huge trees down, and that was a frightening night, but we were invading them. But for the most part, they like to observe people. They just enjoy looking in windows, which is frightening, I know, but, think about it. They're out in the woods. They have nothing to do. The juveniles, teenagers, they're sneaking around, checking out what's going on at this house or whatever. But I think that there's a lot more we have to learn. But thank God, the ones in New York seem to be pretty docile.
Yeah.
But other states, they report very bad aggression. Texas and quite a few of the states down, that way say that they've had more aggressive encounters.
It's funny that you say that as well, because I always imagine that UFOs that are coming here, presumably by extraterrestrials, are by teenagers or grad students, of whatever their science is. Right. Because there's that sense of them coming in, taking a look, and then sneaking out. Right. And that's sort of like the behavioral pattern. Do you see a sort of parallel between those two things?
It's a possibility, and we've had a couple of experiences, and I just did a radio show last week, and I discussed this with Ben, that there may be, there probably is a connection between UFOs and Bigfoot, because people have actually seen them coming down, out of a craft, a beam of light. There's a Sasquatch. A lot of people have seen it, and they have these abilities that they can cloak. I mean, I know it sounds bizarre, but
it does kind of sound crazy.
It does, but
yeah,
they can. We have proof of it. We have photographs. We will be walking, and we wear these Coleman glasses. They're video, audio glasses, and we'll be walking, filming the whole time. We don't see anything, smell anything, or hear anything. Get home, put the chip in, and there they are. We go frame by frame. Yeah.
You say they are. It sounds like a multitude. But also you're saying that you've captured them on video.
Yes, video, and then we take we freeze frame the video, and we take pictures of from the computer, and there they are.
Well, where can people go to see the video?
Well, I guess on my Facebook page is the best, or YouTube, but it's just like you won't be able to, because it's a video moving, unless you notice something, or I could tell you what time stamp to freeze frame the video, and then you would see what what we capture. But the HD cameras pick them up. So I believe that they're like interdimensional, that they can maybe come out of portals, or they're being dropped off here by crafts, and they have like eyes that glow so bright, like LED lights. I've witnessed that. Other people have witnessed it. We've had lights shoot up in the sky the one night when we had them. Well, they were angry, and we had a FLIR camera, and we were filming 4 of them, and they got really angry and broke live trees, like not little saplings, trees, just snapped them off, and then I said, let's get back to the house. They're angry, and we turned to go back to the house. The homeowner and the other gentleman were facing the woods and the creek where they were, and all of a sudden, this blue light just shot up in the sky, and that was it. It went dead silent after that. And that's happened several times. So, there's stuff going on that I think it possibly could be quantum physics. I'm reading Ron Moorhead's book now, The Quantum Bigfoot. Some people believe that they are the Nephilim from the Bible, that, the fallen angels bred with the human females. That's another theory. There's so many theories, but we don't know exactly. No one knows. We just do know that the mitochondrial DNA, the mother's DNA, is human, and the nuclear DNA is unknown.
Right, and how do we find out more about the unknown?
Yeah, how do we find out? It's being hidden from us. A lot of this is being covered up. A lot of the reports that people give, when they do report it to a policeman or the DEC, then they're visited by, someone that tells them, no, you saw a bear. And the person will be like, no, I know what I saw. And they say, no, you saw a bear. They don't want it to get out, and I understand why, because no one would go hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, or anywhere near the woods if they knew, and if, it came out that, these things really exist.
So for everyone listening, if you want to check out some of the videos that Gayle has caught, you can go to facebook.com and go to Bigfoot Researchers of the Hudson Valley. Or you can just go to Gayle, spelled with a Y, Gayle, Gayle J. Beatty on Facebook, and then the Bigfoot Researchers link is on her page as well. But I think you can pause some of these videos, right? And are people allowed to download videos so they can go through it themselves?
Probably.
Like,
I mean, they're out there for the public to do whatever they want. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing what we found. And it's just like knowing that you're in their presence. It can be quite intimidating, especially in the beginning when, this stuff is your brain is trying to process what is going on. How can they do the things that they do? How can they live so close to homes, schools, churches? I do residential investigations for people that are having, activity. Sometimes they do throw rocks at the house, or they slap the side of the house, or, they do things at times, and we go out and we, assess the situation. I bring a group between 5 and 6 people. We comb the whole area, look for any kind of signs, and when we confirm that they do have Sasquatch there, then we go in with our equipment, trail cameras, and set them up at the perimeter of the property, facing out from the house. We tell people to get motion lights, keep their lights on, at night, their porch, outside lights, close their shades and blinds at night, and that deters them from coming too close to the house.
Right,
but
right. Well, growing up on...
Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, this one church that we investigated in Scotia, New York, that was crazy because the man that caretakes for the church was there, and they had some function at night, and he went out to the parking lot to get something out of his car, and something huge was like growling at him, vicious, scared the man. And he called us, and we went out, and sure enough, they were there. And there's this kids' camp that they have in the summer, and it borders this like swampy area with bulrushes and cattails, which they love to hide in them. And that was a church. It's crazy.
Well, you mentioned closing shades and blocking windows and so forth, motion detector lights. I was doing that when I was younger, just watching the X-Files. When it was time to put on the X-Files, man, I closed the shades, but I also turned the lights off on the inside as well. But
they can't see in. Oh, I know. I do. I just recommend that because, like I said, they're bored and they do like to look in windows, and that's the last thing anybody.
Wait, did you say they're bored?
Yeah, I think at night the
how do you know they're
teenagers get bored. They do hunt. They do a lot of hunting at night, and we assume, other things like breeding or whatever. But I think that the juveniles are the ones that are little tricksters. Because one night here at 4 a.m., I have a shop, and it's about 20 yards from my house, and it has a doorbell. And then my house has a doorbell. And at 4 a.m. one night, both of the doorbells started ringing simultaneously. And that was crazy. We got up and we're like, who is doing this? And we've had handprints on the house, the siding, on our camper in the back, other like tracks and footprints around the house, and just different little things that they do, sneaking around at night. So I think it's the juveniles being bored, and the parents probably are out hunting, and they're messing around with our house.
Yeah. Well, if you're just tuning in now, I'm talking to Gayle Beatty of Bigfoot Researchers of the Hudson Valley, and you are listening to the KGRA Salt Lake City, Utah, Hudson Valley, New York. So, Gayle, I also have to ask you, are there other creatures that you hunt besides Bigfoot?
Well, there is something called a dogman that looks like an oversized wolf. It's between 7 and 9 feet tall. Sometimes it walks on 2 legs and other times on 4, as the Sasquatch do as well. And there's been reports of that all over the place, in the same areas as Sasquatch. So initially, when this first started to reach public, attention, about 5 or 6 years ago, people started, talking about this, and I had heard it on a show or two, but I didn't really pay it much mind. I said, "Oh my God, what could this be?" And we were investigating in one of our hot spots, and we found a track, and it was a big one, and we were looking at it, and there were 4 of us there, I think, standing over this track saying, "Oh my God, this must be a dog man," because it was a canine track with claws.
Okay.
And that's what they have. So, so then later that day, I believe, we had split up onto 2 trails going through this nature preserve and videotaping, and Connie and Brian, 2 of our members, took the upper trail, and John and I took the lower trail. We were supposed to meet, and they smelled this god-awful smell. So they're like, "Oh, God, what could that be, a dead animal?" So they kept walking a few more steps, and it was real hot out. They said, "All right, let's stop for a minute and get a drink of water." Connie puts the camera down, her backpack, starts drinking the water, and Brian, and they hear whack, 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 something really heavy, hitting with the stick or something. So they just said, "What the heck could that be?"
Mm-hmm.
And they got their stuff and ran and met us down the trail. So we get back, and I took the chip out of her camera that she had taken, and sure enough, there's this pointy-eared, long snout, light-colored dog-man creature leaning up against a tree. And then about 30 yards behind him and in the woods a little farther, there's a mother Sasquatch with an infant clinging to her left shoulder and a juvenile in front of her, and she had a stick and the juvenile had a stick. So evidently the dog man was almost like, standing, leaning against a tree, like guarding her and the 2 young. So in the beginning, everybody thought, no, they fight, they don't inhabit the same territory. And when I told that story a few years ago, and I'm sure people said, "Oh, no, she's not right," or whatever, but now it's coming out more and more that the dog man inhabits the same areas as the Sasquatch.
What physical trace evidence have you been able to find of either Bigfoot or Dogman?
Well, I have hair samples. I had scat, but I ended up throwing it away. It was in the freezer. I was going to try to get it analyzed, but that didn't work out. And then we've probably got at least a dozen tracks from all over the place. Putnam County, Ulster County, up in Scotia, whatever county that is, Columbia County. They're just all over the place.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Well, how do we know what is a Sasquatch hair sample when we come across one? Because I'm sure going through the woods, there are all kinds of hairs that you can find here and there.
Right.
So how do you know? Hey, let's grab that sample.
Okay. The one sample we found was at the farm, and it was on a barbed wire fence, and the fence, it looked like something tried to run through. It was two wires, one up and one below, and it was stretched out like somebody huge ran and stretched it out, and the hair was hanging off the fence, and it was a long type of hair. It wasn't horse or cow or anything. I mean, I'm pretty good because I've been in the woods my whole life, so I know animals, and it wasn't a raccoon or a bear because it was too long.
Mm-hmm.
It was about 6 inches long, but even if you have it analyzed and it is from a Sasquatch, they don't have anything to compare it to, so it'll come out unknown. It could be unknown primate, but there's no. It's hard to positively identify.
So I guess basically they have to.
Well, we found tracks near that fence as well, so that kind of confirmed to us that it was from a Sasquatch.
Right now, don't you? have the opportunity maybe at some point to do genetic coding and find out what this DNA is?
Well, that's a big thing that the scientists are supposedly working on. A scientist called Brian Sykes in the UK, I believe, is trying, and a guy, Todd Dissetel. But I really go with Melba Ketchum's DNA analysis, that she had over 100 samples from around the country. And some were blood, tissue, everything. She had so many people contribute to her study, and she is the one that, said, that it was human and then unknown, and then everybody shot her down. They said there was no peer review, and it was just a big mess, and, but I believe her. But some of these other people, I think, are being told to say it's a bear or something.
Now, is that because, was that the case where she bought the magazine or the publishing site and then she published it on her own site? I think that was one of the causes, right, of controversy there?
Yeah, something like that. Something, but, I do believe her, and she's a very nice, well-respected woman, and it was very difficult for her because she almost had a breakdown because she really got a lot of slack from a lot of people, and it wasn't fair.
Oh yeah, people can be really harsh and cruel, and it's only gotten worse now with social media. Before we let you go, I do have a question from the chat room. This comes from Neutron. He asks, "Do you believe Bigfoot is part of, slave to, or not involved in the UFO phenomena?" We kind of touched on that before, but the slave to part is interesting.
It could be, because it seems like they're being controlled by something or someone, and they're not allowed to interact with humans. I thought years ago maybe because they're not, they could catch diseases from us or something. That's why they avoid us like the plague. But I think that it's a possibility. Yes, I believe, so many people have seen them in close proximity to UFOs that, they're not making this stuff. Nobody would make that kind of thing up. I mean, it's a possibility. Yes, I do believe that.
Well, I know a number of humans that avoid other humans like the plague, so they're not too wrong.
Right.
But I suspect neither are they that or Harry from Harry and the Hendersons either.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there might be some that help people that I do believe that they do. A little boy over the winter was lost for 3 days in the woods, freezing rain, temperatures, and they found him in a briar bush, but he said that the bear took care of him. The bear took care of him, and the police were out scouring the woods and everything, and I don't believe that it was the bear that took care of him. I think the Sasquatch did. So, but you'll never find out the truth because they're always going to cover it up and say it was a bear.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it almost seems like a fair motivation if you can't get people to take your scientific approach or study to a matter seriously. You want to take it into your own hands. So if you buy a paper and you publish something on that site, because you felt like you have nowhere else to go, right? Yeah. So I mean, in that sense, that makes sense. But I do understand getting that peer-reviewed scientific community involved is very, very important, no matter what the study is. So I guess if you had the ability to do DNA testing, what would you do to bring those other scientists? Is there an approach that maybe other people haven't taken yet?
I don't think they would do it. I mean, Jeff Meldrum has put himself out there, and maybe one or two other scientists, but their jobs can be threatened. Their pension can be threatened. There's a lot more going on than we know about. I don't want to get too deep into it, but there's stuff going on behind the scenes and special agencies and, a lot of cover-ups going on. And, I think people have the right to know. I'm certainly trying to educate the public about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people take it as a joke. Oh, yeah, you're crazy. You believe in Bigfoot. I know they exist. I've seen them.
Yeah.
And my children hunt, and every time I tell them, do not go into the woods alone. And, I worry, and I can't help it. I'm a mom. I'm not going to, I know what I know, and now they know. So, you're more cautious. You have to watch your environment and don't be alone. That's one thing I stress. Don't ever go alone.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, because we're going to be going to the Pine Bush Fair this weekend, and I grew up in a more rural area, but for a long time now, we've been living in the city, and we do get out into nature, into open spaces. We love New Mexico. But I have to say, when you get used to living in the city for too long, there is this weird trepidation about going into the wilds again.
Yeah.
And even if for you it's your neighborhood, for us it's the wilds.
Right.
And is it safe though, really? I mean, how dangerous is it in that area to kind of go out and check out the woods? And
no, I would say, like I told you before, I've been in their presence 100 times. More probably, count growing up and always being on the mountain and in the woods and everything. So I've never been killed. I've been scared half to death, but they certainly could have jumped over the fence that night we were all filming them and grabbed us and killed us. But instead, they broke down huge trees and scared us half to death. But, I just think, just be aware of your environment. A lot of times they're up in the trees. So, look up every once in a while. And, sometimes they throw pine cones or acorns or little pebbles at you. And you'll be like, what's going on? So, little subtle things like that they do. And most people are just like, oh, that's a freak thing. But if they keep doing it, then you should leave. Yeah, definitely leave. If they start like shaking trees aggressively or, vocalizing, I would leave.
Common sense.
Yeah.
Common sense. All right. But as far as other paranormal things, I mean, hauntings or possessions or evil spirits, have you ever had that kind of thing? Is that something people should be concerned about?
No, but I do know that Dogman, we've gotten so many reports of them being in or around cemeteries, which is pretty interesting. And, I don't know that much about the Dogman. I'm trying to learn and read and listen to these encounter stories that people are having. But as far as anything really paranormal, just the lights and different orbs that we get sometimes if we're out at night. I have a family, we're investigating a home in Saugerties, New York right now in Ulster, and the people have Sasquatch there. That's confirmed. They did get a little aggressive, slapping the house and throwing rocks and frightening the homeowners, running towards them and different things. And now they're having strange lights that they see at night, and kind of like orbs.
Betty, let's leave it there. We have to take a break and then bring in our next guest, Sheryl Costa, who will be at the Pine Bush as well.
Yes.
Where would you like people to go again? Facebook or your website?
I think Facebook is the best way. It's called Bigfoot Researchers of the Hudson Valley on Facebook.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All righty. Thank you, Alan. I enjoyed it.
All right. And I'll see you this weekend. Take care.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
All right. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now. We're just going to take a quick break. Hang in there. You do not want to miss the second hour because we're going to be talking about some very interesting insights based on over 140,000 UFO sightings. And Sheryl Costa has broken down the statistics, and it's kind of surprising. It's not exactly what you would expect to to see from the analysis of these statistics of UFO sightings. So hang in there. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now. We will be right back.
Feeling at home only when I get lost. I'm a mess, but a hot mess. Dreaming with my eyes open. I'm a mess, but a hot mess. I'm not scared of being broken. I've been going and I don't wanna.
Hey KGRA family, are you looking to show the world that you're a true believer? Well, shop now at thesaucerbrand.com. They've got something for the whole family. Jackets, hoodies, shirts and hats, and so much more. And now's your last chance to use promo code KGRA for $10 off when you spend $50 or more at thesaucerbrand.com. Your new source for official and authentic ufology-inspired essentials made right here in the USA. And don't forget, use promo code KGRA at checkout and get $10 off when you spend $50 or more. Believe in style and elevate your craft at thesaucerbrand.com. And for those of you going to Contact in the Desert and Alien Con this year, Saucer will land at CITD May 31st through June the 3rd, and look for them at The Alien Con June 21st through the 23rd.
Now there's a commercial-free video-on-demand TV channel completely devoted to only the best movies on UFOs, ancient mysteries, conspiracies, and suppressed science. It's called UFO TV All Access. UFO TV All Access is now available on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, Chromecast, UFOTV.com, and download the UFO TV app from Google Play and iTunes. Go to UFOTV.com and subscribe now. That's UFO TV All Access. If it's not UFO TV, it's just a hoax.
This is Richard Dolan, and I want to brag for just a second about the incredible authors I publish under Richard Dolan Press. Some of the most innovative and well-researched books in the field of UFOs and beyond that you'll find anywhere in the world. Incredible UFO encounters, the cover-up, the experiences by ordinary people, Russian UFOs, psychic phenomena, consciousness, synchronicities, and owls. Yeah, it's all there, and it's all fascinating reading because I would never publish a book that isn't. To learn more, go to richarddolanpress.com.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
The signs keep on coming, they point to the end, but I hold on so tight. Back and forth in my mind, beating conclusions I don't wanna find, 'cause I know it's not right. When I come home to you at the end of the day, just to avoid change one more night, just for one more night.
Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith on KGRA Radio. Taking us out of the break was Hot Mess by Lizette Xavier. If you want to find out more about her, just go to LizetteXavier.com. We appreciate Septembrio and Lizette Xavier participating in our bumper music. My next guest is Sheryl Costa. She's an upstate New York resident and a New York native who saw her first UFO at age 12. She's a veteran of 2 military services, Air Force and the Navy. She's a retired information security professional from the aerospace industry. Since 2013, Sheryl has written the widely popular UFO column New York Skies for SyracuseNewYorkTimes.com. In March 2017, Sheryl and co-author Linda Miller Costa released their UFO statistics book, UFO Sightings Desk Reference, United States of America 2001 to 2015. Their book presents data and analyzes trends for 121,000 USA UFO sighting reports between 2001 2015. Sheryl was named Researcher of the Year at the 2018 International UFO Congress. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the State University of New York at Empire State College, and I do know that she has analyzed many more sightings since then, up to 146,800. Sheryl Costa, welcome to the show.
Hey, Alan, how are you?
I'm good. Now, is it Costa or Costa?
Costa.
Okay, because I know I said it 2 different ways in that bit there. So welcome to Paranormal Now, and we had mentioned this earlier. Before we talk about your work, I know that you would like to say a few things about Stanton Friedman.
Stanton, as far as I am concerned, is like the dean of UFOlogy. I mean, he earned that rank for the rest of us. You know, he really was. I had the opportunity probably in the 1991 time frame. I was laid up with a medical recuperation, and a friend of mine let me stay at his house. And it turned out this friend of mine had first editions of just about all the UFO books that had been published to that point. And he had everything that Stanton had read. In fact, had written, rather, and they were all hardbacks. And I became quite a fan of the man's work. Then from 1998 to 2001, I hosted a show in Washington, D.C. on the business talk station WMET. I hosted a show called The X Factor on Saturday nights. And in 1999, I had Stanton Friedman on, and we talked about his book, Above Top Secret, for 2 hours. And it was a fascinating conversation. When just about 6 months before Linda and I released the UFO desk reference, I was at a conference, and I had a printout of a couple of states worth of information, and I handed this printout stapled together and handed it over to Stanton. We were both sitting in the vendor suites kind of thing, and he was there with his books and everything. And I asked him to take a look at it, and he looked through it, and he said, "Wow, you're compiling all this?" And I said, "Yeah." And he stood up with the thing in his hand, waving it over his head. "Somebody's finally publishing data." You know? And he was really delighted with it and fascinated. At some point he ended up writing us a blurb about the book. We didn't get him to write a foreword, but he did write a blurb. And I've always had a great deal of respect for the man. I think he had a great deal of respect for Linda and myself, and he'll be sorely missed. I hope he's gone on to bigger and better things.
You know, I don't think a lot of people really got to know that he was a very kind person with a very compassionate soul. And that's a side that I don't think a lot of people have experienced. Did you feel that when you were with him?
Yes. Him and I, you very frequently be at the UFO Congress or something like that, and people would just be inundating him with questions. Mm-hmm. And sometimes he'd get a little bit of a break, and we'd sit there and talk, about the weather, or, they got some great sandwiches out there with the vendor, just regular people talk. And he was a great guy to chat with and everything. And I remember him telling a couple of accounts with him and Kathleen Marden were down doing some research at some archive. I believe it was in Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. I'm sorry. And he told me some stories about some of their efforts to do some archive digging down there. And I learned a great deal from the man about research techniques, just in quiet conversations around the sides at these conferences. Yeah. So, like I said, he'll be sorely missed. He had a very rich life, and for that we should celebrate that.
Yeah, indeed we should. And the idea of him being so excited about data, I think, is so true, because for so long we were left without any deep data analysis. And that's because it takes a lot of work and the right mind to do that. And I think that's what you and Linda have done. And also, how many universities or government agencies would publicly share any real data that they may have analyzed? Do you think that was done behind the scenes somewhere where they're just not giving it to us, or it was just not done?
It may not have been done. If the Air Force did it, they did it back during Project Blue Book to some degree. Well, remember back in those days, though, they were talking. Your computers were the size of a floor of a building. Okay, and so I mean, even John Keel, he used some big IBM 360, and I remember an IBM 360 complex at the factory where one of my uncles worked was, it was the size of it was the size of a basketball court. It was huge. And so, I mean, this wasn't an easy thing to do and sit there and punch up all the punch cards with the information and all that kind of thing. So it was quite an arduous process back in the day. Not that it was that much easier for Linda and myself, considering the vast amount of data we were dealing with. I made a comment once on it when the book first came, the reference book first came out in 2017. Somebody asked me about, if this has been done before, and to our knowledge, other than about 800 to 1,000 sightings that John Keel ran on some punch cards, where he came up with his Wednesday phenomena. It's probably the only compilation of American UFO sightings done in a non-classified environment. And after this, about a year ago, I had a chance to chat with Lou Alessandro, and during the course of which the only stuff they were really monitoring was the stuff around our military installations and around the fleet and where our high technology was. So they were really only tracking encounters with the military. In fact, due to posse comitatus laws, they weren't really allowed to look at the civilian databases. So what Linda and I did is probably the first major compilation of any of this stuff.
Well, and how long did it actually take you?
The first, 2001 to 2015 took us 15 months. It took 10 months to crunch and clean the data and try and make some sense out of it. And then about another 8 months to put the book together. Now, the thing is, we didn't know what we were doing. There was different cleaning processes required for both databases, because the data was dirty in both situations, needed to be reformatted in some cases, and there was efforts in the National UFO Reporting Center data, because it was HTML. People had attempted to hack it. And there were problems, various places that we had to fix. So there was a lot of work there. Things like spelling of city names. Some people did it in uppercase, some people did it in lowercase, some people did it in mixed case. Some people put that extra little space in the beginning, and it took a long time to do this. And remember, we were working only weekends in those days. Now, if we had to do it, both of us had been government contractors, and we knew how to write process procedures. And as we kept detailed notes on how to do this first, do this second, do this third, when you were cleaning up a database, we wrote process procedure that said, this is how we do it. We do this, this, and this. Okay. And then on the MUFON data, you do this, and this. So if I had to do it all over again, now we could probably do the whole thing, do the entire crunching aspect in probably about 2 months.
And you've studied now up to 146,800? Is that the latest number?
Yeah, that's where we are at, from 2001 to end of 2018. It was the 146,801.
Okay. What was your biggest takeaway? We can talk more about this, but what was your biggest takeaway about this? What did you learn about UFOs?
Okay, from our perspective, there are four major drivers for Okay, first thing you have to remember that the sightings book was about the observers seeing them. Not so much people kept asking me, why did UFOs do that? You know, it's not about why did the UFOs do that. We had to take the assumption there are just lots of UFOs up there. And in some cases, I came to a conclusion at the end of our first book was there's regularly scheduled flights. You know, I mean, that's one of the things we came to a conclusion with. But okay, there are four major drivers. Population, for one, and everybody knee-jerks population, but there are a lot of places where the state population, one state with almost equivalent sightings to another state, has far less people than does the companion state. Okay, give an example. Florida and Texas have very similar numbers. In the 2000 book, it was 2015 book. It was in the 7,000s. Okay, but Florida had half the population of Texas. And we had similar situations where, like, Washington State and Pennsylvania had similar numbers, but one state had far less people than the other. Okay,
well, that seems like the common sense assumption is that where there's more people, of course you're going to see more.
Correct.
UFOs, right?
Okay,
but that wasn't the case.
Not totally. In fact, at one point when I came out with my 2017 numbers, just kind of on social media, I shared some of it, and people knee-jerked on California as always. Oh, well, they got the population. That's why they're number one. And so I got very sick of listening to that. And I built a pseudo California on the East Coast. I took identical lines of latitude, similar landmass areas. And it turned out that my East Coast California actually had about 14 or 15 million more people than did California, but they had far less sightings.
Interesting. Now, is there a category for the land of fruits and nuts? Is there a psychology aspect to this that you can point at and say, hey, you know what?
No, everybody
are a different type.
No, let's not go there. In fact, that was one of the first things I had heard from an awful lot of what I'm going to call the cranky sort in the UFO community. Oh, why did it have to be California? There are kooks and nuts out there, No.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah.
We heard a lot of that. And what we found, there are four drivers: population, temperate weather, leisure time, hours of darkness. And if you want a fifth driver, water.
And here we are along the Hudson Valley.
Okay, let me give you the numbers there.
Yeah, let's do that.
But I don't have the 2018 solid numbers here to the decimal, but when I did a newspaper article about 2 years ago, right after the first book came out, I went down the St. Lawrence Seaway, from the top of the St. Lawrence Seaway, the counties that border that, and all the way down to the middle of Lake Erie.
Yeah.
It goes right across Lake Ontario and down to Lake Erie. And I took all those adjoining counties, and it was 19% of the sightings in New York State. Yeah. Then I started at Lake Champlain, came right down the Hudson, did not look at Long Island, just went straight to the ocean, and it was 32% of the sightings in New York State. So those two waterways had 52% of the sightings in New York State. Then I went to the Finger Lakes, which is the next biggest area of water in New York. No one lake was jumped out. Okay, but if you took the counties of the Finger Lake regions together, it represented another 19%. So basically about 70 to 80%, let's see, 32 and another 19, that'd be about over 50% of the sightings in New York State were around major bodies of water.
Now, what about Manhattan? Obviously, it is surrounded by water and is near a major body of water. And I know there are a number of sightings here, but I just don't understand, because when I look out the window, I can't see the sky. I barely see any stars.
Okay, well, LA's got the same problem. Let me explain this. Los Angeles County has the most sightings in the United States from a county standpoint, not the city, but the county. Okay? And Phoenix or Maricopa County is the number 2 county in the United States. LA County has more sightings than does 40 of the individual states individually. Maricopa County, Arizona has more sightings than 36 individual states do individually. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I was just in Phoenix. Then, again, the sky's really lovely there. But you go to LA, and you got tall buildings, you got lots of city lights and things like this. But the thing is, Los Angeles has had UFO sightings since the 1880s. They had strange lights going up and down the valleys, things like this. There's news clippings from that era. And then they had their Battle of LA in February of 1942. Mm-hmm. So they've had a lot of stuff going on. But we think it's going on with Phoenix and with LA. We think there's a generational storytelling effect. Grandpa saw this. Mom and Dad saw this back in the day. Wow, if we watch up, maybe we'll see something. And then you go to Phoenix. They had the Phoenix Lights 22 years ago, right? And again, the same sort of thing. People look up because they saw something really cool 20 years ago. Maybe we'll see something like Mom and Dad did. We think that's some of it.
That's interesting. Yeah. So there is a psychological aspect, or maybe not psychologically, a cultural or behavioral aspect to this.
Yeah, there is. Now, but let's go back to the idea of temperate weather and leisure time. Mm-hmm. When we first, again, remember I was already writing a column, and a lot of what we were crunching was crunched to support the column. Okay, the newspaper column. I had to have something to write about every week, okay?
Oh, and just for everybody listening, the column, if you go to syracusenewtimes.com/author/Sheryl Costa, you can find out there. Really, really great pieces. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Sheryl.
Yeah, well, it's funny. If you look at any one article, go down to the bottom at the end when you read the article, go down to the bottom on the left-hand side, you'll see some links there. If you click on the highlighted, the hyperlinked New York skies, click on it, suddenly you'll get a menu of about 20 articles that are popping, and it'll go back over the last 6 years worth of articles. They're all there. So there's quite a archive of material out there. But okay, let's talk about the drivers again. What we found out in New York State was that there was this quiescent amount of sightings: January, February, March, April, Mayish, and then June it starts to tick up. July and August are through the roof. Okay, big peak, and September is down somewhere down under August, and it falls off to October, November, December, and it's about the same as it was in January, February, March, April. Okay, and we thought that was the way it was like that every place. Okay, and I mean everybody wrote me when we did the article, and they said, "Well, duh, Sheryl, it's warm summer weather. Of course, people are going to be outside and see more UFOs." And I got a lot of mail like that.
Yeah.
So, I made the mistake of making that assumption as well, that it was like that everywhere. When we were actually physically putting the book together, I hadn't really looked at the UFOs by month. Okay. And I had those charts, electronically transferred to Linda. I really wasn't paying attention to them. I was working on other stuff in the book. And Linda looked over her terminal one Saturday afternoon and said, did you notice there's a latitude difference in the monthly stuff? I said, what? Huh. And then I went over there and looked at it, and she showed me the middle states, get down to Virginia and Maryland, North Carolina, and go across the country. That peak in the center during the summer months starts to flatten out, and the other numbers are bigger, so to speak, right? It starts leveling out. Yeah. And then when you get down into deep South states, we're talking the Floridas, the Alabamas, the Mississippis, that type of thing, it becomes statistically flat. And except sometimes in some of the hotter states, the summer, maybe 1 month of the summer actually dips because it's so bloody hot. Okay. So temperate weather happened to be a major driver.
That makes sense.
And then leisure time came into it. Now, we guessed at it in the first book. Okay, now we confirm it because we went ahead and managed to write an algorithm to analyze the hours of the day down into hour parts. Okay, and 68 to 70% of the 68 to 74% of the sightings in any particular day, and this is both national and then it varies a little bit by state, but it's essentially a stable curve in every state except Florida and I'm sorry, not Florida, Alaska and Hawaii, and I'll explain that in a minute.
Sure.
So what it is 68 to 74% of the sightings are between 5 o'clock in the afternoon and 11:30 at night, with the peak being between 8 and 10:30. That's an 8-hour window. And then it falls off radically after midnight. Now, some places there's a bump at 5 o'clock in the morning. If you go to Las Vegas, there's a bump at 1 o'clock in the morning, a downward bump, at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and 4 o'clock in the morning. And somebody from Vegas looked at it. Oh, that's when all the clubs and shows let out. Oh, okay, fine, great. Okay. And then we found out during that 16-hour window from midnight to 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, only represented about 28 to 32% of the sightings. And there's a very significant dip during morning drive time between 6 and 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning.
So we can see patterns in human behavior directly correlating with sightings.
You nailed it.
Now, with this compendium of data that you have, you can look at
let me finish one more thought here.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so we know hours of darkness have something to do with it. Now, I had hate mail from people, but we see UFOs in the daytime. Yeah, but they're only 32% over the bigger span of things, okay? Then the hours of darkness comes in. Now, again, people said, well, yeah, okay, people are home and everything. And this leisure time thing, Washington, D.C. is rock bottom for sightings. Okay, they're number 51 of 51 states, okay? But where do you go for the sightings in Washington, D.C.? Out into the bedroom communities in Northern Virginia, in Maryland, into Delaware. Okay, that's where the sightings are because people go home. New York City area, the ground zero for UFO sightings in New York State is Suffolk County, Long Island. Okay. And I'm sorry to take away from the Hudson Valley, but Suffolk County, Long Island is the ground zero by a lot, believe me. But okay, let's go on this hours of darkness for a moment. When we were doing, a lot of people just made the assumption with the leisure time that it would be, like when you're off work, a normal 9 to 5 kind of job. But when we analyzed Alaska, the all summer months of May, June, July, what they call white nights up there, okay, the sightings go into the toilet.
Yeah, well, it makes sense, sure.
But the rest of it made sense. It makes sense, but people did not realize that. Now, I did get together with a couple of MUFON investigators from Alaska, and they confirmed exactly what we were talking about, So go ahead. I'll shut up now and you ask your question. But I wanted to make sure you understood those 4 factors are the major drivers.
Well, I understand. I appreciate that. What I want to know is, have you taken anything else away from the phenomena that is a reflection of what you think these things might be? Is there a way to look at this data and draw any sort of speculation or hypothesis from it, other than just these are the patterns that we see of behavior relating to human behavior? Is there any way to infer anything more?
Friend.
Okay, go with. Let's hear.
Give me 1 second here. I got to flip a page back on something, so I got the numbers in front of me. Okay, I took a position. Linda and I have come to a similar conclusion to Dr. Jacques Vallée. Okay, he said 80% was noise, and the interesting stuff was in the 20%. Okay, Linda and I looked at it a different way. We had a different approach. Linda's the brains of this operation. She said, this is how we're going to build the book. This is how we're going to do research. She used to work in the Environmental Protection Agency. She was their chief librarian for 15 years. And she said, we're going to do an epidemiology study. We're going to study clusters. Okay. So this was her baby. She was the real brain. She did all the high level thinking of how we were going to do it. I was the expert on crunching and analysis, because that's what I did my IT thing of crunching huge firewall logs and things like this. So we had this perfect storm of skill and outlook on this thing. All right. We came to it, instead of 80%, we came with about 70% was noise. Okay. So when you get into that 70%, it gets really special. We have 2 sayings. One, the truth is in the shapes, the non-aerodynamic shapes. And the truth is in the small numbers. Okay? Here's a little piece of disclosure for your audience. Of that 70% that we had, it amounted to 44,040. That's at 30% of all that 146,801 sightings. 44,040. Now, you divide that by 18 years. I know it's not weighted by year, but we'll just divide it just for fun. Let's divide this by 18 years. That gives us 2,446 sightings. Okay? You divide that 2,446 sightings by 12 months. Okay? That gives us 204 sightings a month. Okay? Divide that by evenly by 50 states. DC was negligible. It was the numbers were so tiny we didn't even count them. Okay, and what you end up with is 4 sightings a month for every state in the union from 2001 to 2018. Essentially, one exotic non-terrestrial craft event a week for every state in the country for 18 years.
That number is. That's an average. Now, is there a way to
weight it to population and all that?
Yeah.
I'm going to do that for the MUFON Symposium in July. I'm going to take the time to weight that to different states. We're going to take that rule of thumb chalk talk that I just gave you, and then we're going to go ahead and weight it to the population basis of the states and give a more probable there. But but here's the deal. Yeah. Here's what's hiding in there. In the last 5 years, all 28 shapes between both databases have fallen off almost 40%. Okay? Except 4. 3 are on a steep increase, and 1 has just been one straight even line for all these years. Now let's talk about that one for a minute. This is the changing shape. This is the ones people, when they start to put their instruments on them, they appear to change. Now, I used to not even pay attention to them because I thought they were people just making mistakes, but Jacques Vallée thought they were important. So I went in and did some deep analysis. There's barely 70 a year, somewhere between 70 and 180 a year, an average of about 123 a year. And then when you plot the thing out on a little bar chart over the 18 years, it runs along humpy, all the way across like a little snake, okay? But it is solid. But it's so far down in the dirt when you're looking at 8, 10, 12, 15,000 sightings a year, it doesn't even show up on most graphs because it's barely 100 sightings. The line is right down there on the bottom of the grid, okay?
It's almost like a baseline.
It is. And if there's anything that's the real thing, that one is. Okay? Now, the 3 that are increasing, the Saturn-shaped ships, these are like the ones that the Japan Airlines freighter saw back in 86, the mile-wide Saturn-shaped ship that the 747 had to fly around a couple of times.
Sure.
And when that shape used to be like 1 to 5 sightings a year, right up until about 5 to 6 years ago, and then it started tweaking up a little bit, and then about 3 years ago, it took a steep rise to about 60 sightings a year. Okay, and what's interesting is that egg-shaped craft and teardrop-shaped craft follow roughly the same pattern. And when there's peak periods with the Saturn, there's peak periods with these other two. And the suggestion that we have is that the little egg-shaped craft are a little scout ship. The teardrop shape is a little bit of a shuttle ship. And you see those kinds of numbers that the little scout ships have more of them than does the teardrop. And they both track along with the Saturn shape.
Okay, so
it
sure,
looks like there's a new team in town.
Let's pull back for a second and get some perspective. So what you're saying is, depending on the type of craft, there's a particular sort of pattern that you can follow.
Yep.
So what that would mean is that there's a something driving this craft, and clearly they have an agenda, right? Is that fair to infer? If they're an intelligence, if it's
they have some kind of agenda driven activity.
Yeah, modus operandum. Okay. Now, are you a believer that these are extraterrestrials and biological? That they're
all of the above.
AI,
all of the above. I lean on the changing ones. I lean a great deal on the idea that those ships, those craft, may be living craft, AI, and have a telepathic capability. When they change, are they really changing, or are they just projecting a telepathic thought into our heads that makes us think it changed? Okay. You know, into our consciousness.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And I want to ask you this question, and I know it might sound a little silly, but I've always thought that the way some of these UFOs behave is as if these are students studying us. There's a sort of going in, checking us out, pulling, and then pulling back out again. Like us, we would go into the ocean and we'd tag a shark, or we'd capture a tortoise and tag it and set it back out to sea and do testing and blood samples on it, right? And there's a sort of extraction and then return. Do you think that there's something going on here? Do you see in the patterns something like these are either students or they're just studying us?
Yeah. I mean, I've joked even before I started writing my column in 2013, I've joked with friends for years that some of this stuff, especially with the experiencers, I've often thought that there was like remember the old Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom program, Marlon Perkins and those guys, out there tagging animals and things. I've joked for years with friends of mine. Perhaps we are our abductees are stars on Mutual of Zeta Reticuli or something. It seems like that. They're definitely interested in our biology and genetics. I know for a fact that there are a number of families that have been tracked over many generations. Okay, my own family has been tracked for 4 generations.
Your own family.
Yeah. I've got EBE story from my own family from 1882. Wow. And we've had certain family members that have had strange encounters and medical experiments done on them, that kind of thing.
Well, did they know what it was? I mean, that far back? I mean, they didn't have terms like EVP.
No. This is the description that came from the great aunt. Mm-hmm. Okay, they were 7 and 9, the two of them. A whole 13 and 14 school children. This is in a wilderness. This place is very rural now. Then it was wilderness, and they were farm families, and they were walking the proverbial thing like Grandma used to say. I had to walk 7 miles to school in the morning, kind of thing. Okay, and it was April. There was spring runoff. And they were getting ready to cross this wooden bridge over a swollen stream. And they looked down by the stream, and there was these little men with almond eyes, bald heads, wearing blue jumpsuits. And they seemed doing something with picking up rocks and things like this. And they saw the kids, and they waved to them and motioned them to come down. And the kids all ran home to their individual farms, terrified.
See, then that is fascinating, and they just told this story as it is. Did they accompany it with any speculation, or was it just this thing happened?
That was how it was handed down to me.
Right. And have you had similar experiences to that?
I can't confirm or deny.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Okay.
And as the clock is ticking, I do want to get.
I know your clock is ticking. Oh, go ahead.
I do want to get a chat question in from Neutron. I think it's actually a very interesting question. The question is, did the data between daylight encounters versus nighttime encounter have any difference between reported paranormal events accompanied
that kind of data is not in the databases. You get all we had to work with was what, when, where, what shape. That's all we had to work with.
So it's strictly the UFO database. That's what you've got. Do you think you'll ever expand upon that and venture into that territory?
Where would I get a database like that?
I don't know. It's a really good question.
See, just because you want a statistic doesn't mean there's one out there. In fact, a lot of statistics. No, really. No, I'm being honest about this. I've had a lot of people ask me for some really, really wild stuff, and I said, "How do you expect us to put that together? Where is the data to compare to this?" Okay.
Well, one thing I would say is
most UFO reports are barely more than 2 sentences and the basic information.
Sure. If you go to New Fork or something like that, and you see a longer description, I guess people would wonder, in that description, did somebody also say this other thing happened when I had the sighting?
Of the ones that I've read over the years when I was doing more sightings in my column, not really. Not really. Okay. I didn't ever see that many of them. In fact, the references to EBEs being on the ground was almost never referenced in the reports that I read. And I used to go through them like a fine-tooth comb when I was writing my sighting stuff for my column.
Mm-hmm. So now what's your next stage moving forward with all that you have?
Well, Linda and I are going to publish, if we publish the thing the way we want to do it now, because we've learned ways that we've written algorithms, we've learned ways to crunch the data in ways we never anticipated. Okay. And if we published all of it together, it'd be 2,700 pages.
Ooh. That leads me to a question that I was meaning to ask you.
Let me finish the thought. Go ahead.
Well, how do you feel about Beyond UFOs and the work that they did there?
Beyond
UFOs by the Free organization?
Oh, yeah. Over 4,000 experiencers. Yeah, that's brilliant stuff. I love it. And they got their finger on the pulse of this stuff because it really is about consciousness. The EBEs are the off-worlders are doing a lot of stuff with us as far as they're turning a lot of people into mystics.
I do feel that as well. And I think in reference to Neutron's question relating to the paranormal and UFOs, I think books like this are getting people more interested in that because there are parallels and overlaps that are discussed here. And it seems to be a little bit more common now in ufology.
Let me give you a perspective. And I just did a thing out on YouTube for the UFO Hub people. I gave them a 22-minute chalk talk about consciousness because I used to live in a Buddhist monastery. I know a lot about this topic matter. Mm-hmm. And one of the points I brought up was a few years ago, I was at the UFO Congress. And when I was at the UFO Congress, they had, I went to a number of years, and they had this little 7:00 in the morning meeting for experiencers. It was kind of like an AA meeting for experiencers. Okay.
Right.
But press wasn't welcome. So finally one year I went there and I asked Yvonne, I said, look, I'll leave my press pass upstairs. I won't write about anybody. I just want to come and learn. And she let me come. And I went in there expecting, because I believed all the upper cable channel programs that everybody got probed or had their eggs taken, whatever, And I expected to go in there and find 35 or 40 people crying in their coffee about they got probed. Mm-hmm. I get in there, there's 175 people in there, and it's got all the energy of a tent revival. Very different model. Those people thought the off-worlders were cool. It was a great experience. It was fantastic. It was a spiritual experience. This is the stuff I heard.
Right. And that's what people are still saying.
Yeah. And the free people, they went to the trouble. All these PhD guys went to the trouble of sifting through that kind of all those surveys, and they came to the same conclusion.
Well, it's interesting that in the beginning, they found that many experiencers, I think it was like 80%, had a negative experience, and that shifted over time. So yes, it started off as a negative and then became a positive experience. Is there any way for you to take what you've done and overlay it on top of their work, or is it just so disparate?
It's two different phenomena. It really is.
Okay. All right. Where does your curiosity lie the most in all of this ufology and the research you've done?
I don't know if there's a curiosity. I mean, I've spent a lot of rainy afternoons crawling through the small data. That's where I have found hidden secrets. I've developed algorithms for identifying clusters and things like this. So that was the cool thing there. What we're planning to do, though, this is important. no one book could do this. So what we're thinking of publishing is 50 separate books for each of the 50 states, with a half a dozen or a dozen compilation books of a deeper analysis on different aspects of the data. And that's what we're thinking of. It will be the largest compilation of UFO sighting, analyzed sighting data ever published if we do this.
And how many years will that expand?
No. We have a rapid production process. We think we can do this over the next 18 months.
Wow, that's impressive.
We already have the data. It's just a matter of formatting it.
Okay, so that's interesting because your book it's data, right? And you're not really implying or speculating. You're sort of leaving it open as it is. These other books, would you add more commentary to the book, or are you just going to leave it?
We don't say who they are or where they're from. We don't know. People ask me that. All reporters from big newspapers ask me that all the time, and they say, "Is it extraterrestrial? Is it extragalactic? Interstellar? Is it time travelers? Is it interdimensional?" So I said, "Yeah, all of the above. I don't know. All we know is I can show you where and when they've been, and where and when they are not."
Well, I suspect that it's going to take us a very long time to really get all of those the answers, but this is obviously a step in the right direction, and hopefully this will lead us down that road, and we will be able to answer those questions.
I hope so. I really do. The thing, Linda and I hope to walk away from doing this after we publish that collection of about 60 books.
Yeah. All right, Sheryl, thank you so much for coming on. It's fantastic, and hopefully I'll see you at Pine Bush this weekend.
Oh, yes, you will. Absolutely. In fact, I volunteered with Bill there to help man the KGRA desk, so I'll be here.
All right, perfect. Sheryl, have a good night. And to everybody listening, thank you so much for tuning in to KGRAradio.com, your official contact for the best in alternative talk radio. I'm Alan B. Smith, your grateful host tonight. And once again, our warm and deep felt thoughts for the loss of Stanton Friedman. And until next time, live in the mystery. Be well, everyone.
Just for one more night.